Welcome into another Tallahassee game day. Great to be with you. They're going to play football today. Knock on wood. All right. We finally arrived at yet another game, my friends, and we appreciate you tuning in early for Tallahassee game day, 9 a.m. this time around instead of our usual 10 o'clock in the morning kickoff, and at least for this show. And that has to do with a couple of things. First of all, Florida State does play basketball today as well, coming off a win against Indiana. And now they get rival Florida, a team that they've beaten 6 times in a row, looking for 7 times in a row. That is something to behold as they inch their way towards the Platinum Bohica against Florida in basketball. We want to welcome you in, as well on Warchant TV on YouTube.
It's an emotional day, sir.
Yeah. When I think about 7 straight, Tom, you get that excited feeling, and then it leads to the memories of all 6 of those wins in a row.
From an own basket to just owning the rivalry. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Just to be in the better program by a lot. So that's what you have right now. A lot of piqued interest for Florida State fans on a Saturday where they get the mix of both basketball and football. First up will be basketball. We'll talk about that next hour as we kind of meld the two shows, Tallahassee Game Day and the Court Report that we also do. So we'll touch on both of the contests today. Let's begin with football, though, where Florida State has not played a football game in nearly a month. And the frustration, I think, of the season, meaning the mounting losses and the poor performances in said losses, was only exacerbated by a stretch of not being able to play football. And I understand as we go back through and document what took place to lead us to this point, Tom, that you know, in retrospect, you do avoid playing Clemson, not for the reasons that they want to accuse you of, but nonetheless, you avoid playing Clemson, which is a good thing because the Noles would have lost that game by whatever score Clemson wanted to beat them by. And you avoided playing Virginia. Not that Virginia's a juggernaut by any stretch, but you would have lost to Virginia as well, probably pretty convincingly. So instead, you get Duke. And if I could name one team in this league that I'd want to play, given the team that Florida State's fielding currently, it would be Duke. So, hey, here, we get Duke today.
Yeah, it's a really weird feeling today. It feels like we're playing a bowl game, and a low-level one at that. It reminds me of the Music City Bowl way back when, after the academic scandal, and we're telling on ourselves, and you know a sizable chunk of the team is not up there in Tennessee. But the good news today is the money is not given to a city in Tennessee. It's given to the athletic department here in Tallahassee, which is a big reason this game is happening. There's no doubt about that. But it's just, typically if you're in the flow of a football season, I'm watching 2 or 3 games that our opponent has played, and I'm breaking it down. Man, the way Duke played against Miami last week, I'm not doing that. This is very much about who wants to be there, who wants to play. And it feels like a bowl game in that way because, this is usually a Saturday reserved for Army and Navy only, right? And the next week after that, you get the 11:30 kickoffs for some bowl games. Like, oh, my God, Central Michigan and North Texas are playing. Awesome. Let's go watch that game together. But instead, in a COVID year, you've got a lot of college football today. And for Florida State, this feels very much like a bowl game.
Yeah, and it's a game I actually want to win, though. I'd like to see them take a step forward. I know traditionally, if you play a game, you want to win a game. But in a lost season, I've had my share of indifference where it really didn't matter to me. And I hate to say that. I'm just being honest with our listeners. Anytime I see the Garnet and Gold in competition, I want them to win, and I get excited once I set my eyes on them. But the feeling going into some of these games this year has been complete indifference. And I don't feel that way today. I'd like to see them get this win for a couple of reasons. I think they've got to garner any kind of momentum they can, any nugget of positivity that they can latch onto as we round out the season would be appreciated. I also don't think they're going to beat Wake Forest next week. So I'd like to get this win because I don't want to end the season on just nothing but losses and going 2-8. Let's find a way to mix in a win here, get some confidence, and give yourself a chance next week. I'd also like to, Tom, because it will mean that our defensive coordinator put together a scheme that allowed Florida State to be in the game and win the game. He's going to have to get some stops. Duke's been awful this year, but a lot of that has to do with turnovers. And I never go into games expecting to get turnovers. Now, you might be able to expect that against Duke, who have 35 of them, which is insane to think about.
Unbelievable.
It really is. When you're averaging more than 2 turnovers a game, you got problems, to say the least. But listen, 19 of those 35, Tom, are fumbles. I don't know. Are they going to fumble it today? I mean, who goes into the game with that being your strategy? I hope they fumble today. They'd sure like to. Well, if you can't get fumbles, what do? Oh, I don't know. We just have to hope they fumble. That's not a game plan. So,
right, yeah,
that's not a game plan.
Well, a lot of opponents this year, you hope they miss the open guy, and that's no way to live.
That's no way to live,
That's the way we have been living for some time now, but it's no way to live. I hear you. Like, I want the streak against Duke to live on. There aren't many things that are still alive.
Forevermore.
Right, when it comes to Florida State and football streaks, but this one, they moved the game here. Everything about this Duke game is the way that Duke doesn't care, or at least they didn't last week. Maybe they look at Florida State's film and they say, "Ooh, we could win this game. Might as well give it a shot."
I think that every team that looks at Florida State film defensively says we can win this game.
Right, but this is, it's a real test to see if Duke is motivated, because if they were, they would get up for this game. It's just the circumstances surrounding it favor Florida State as much as it possibly can, given that this year has been a year of rotten luck, especially with injuries. But if Jordan Travis really is something close to healthy, then the offense could be, in its own way, kind of electrifying today.
Yeah, I can't imagine he's not healthy. If he's not healthy now, he's never going to be healthy ever again in his life.
This is true.
I mean, Jesus, what are we doing here? So I got to believe he's healthy at this point, and therefore, when you look at the numbers that Duke has given up on the ground, which is staggeringly bad, there are several games this year where they gave up more than 6.5 yards per rush. A couple that they gave up more than 7 yards per rush. That's no way to live. I mean, that's how you get beat badly. We know. Watch our defense. Very similar in that you can do whatever you want against it. So I think that's not the side of the ball I worry about today. I really believe Florida State's going to score. I believe Florida State's going to move the ball on the ground. It's what they want to do anyhow. It's really their game plan when Jordan Travis is at quarterback. It's the other side. And I continue to do 2 fingers to my eyes, 2 fingers back to you, Adam. We got to see something on that side, because I will say this, and this is where it bothers me to have to admit this. Duke's going to move the ball. I mean, Chase Bryce is not incompetent. I know the numbers are terrible. He is the victim, another victim of COVID. This is a grad transfer who came in and didn't get a spring. He didn't learn the offense, and it shows. They are on the wrong page for many of these interceptions. But he's not incompetent. If you leave people open, he will hit them. So can you cover somebody?
Well, and it's a very simplistic game plan today. If you only have 3 cornerbacks, and you're going to have to get, if they go 4 wide, a little bit creative as to who you station and where and what coverage schemes you draw up. Maybe the simplicity helps. And the other thing I'm looking for today, and I saw it in the chat already on Warchant TV, is maybe this is a game where the torch is passed to the younger group that is bought in, because the guys who play today have gone through hell when it comes to the preparations, the protocols, and they're still invested, and they still care to play. And those are the younger guys. We've heard the conversations surrounding the program this year. Definitely the older guys are a beaten-up bunch. Some of them are still unbelievably steadfast, like an Emmett Rice. And others were broken. Others were broken. But the younger guys have bought into what Coach Norvell is saying, because a lot of the things he's saying, especially on offense, have come true. But the thing about today is maybe it's an opportunity to pass the torch to those younger guys, the quote-unquote Norvell guys, and to see what they have in the tank.
Well, anybody that's out there today is going to have, they will have, in my mind, earned your admiration. I mean, they've had to sacrifice an awful lot and do so under extreme circumstances. You're not garnering wins. You're not even playing games for weeks on end. You've had the large chunk of your veteran leadership either be asked to leave or opt out or move on for some reason or another. Anybody that's out there now has continued to keep their nose to the grindstone. They've been smart with what they do off the field. They've isolated themselves. They haven't been able to be a college football student athlete. They haven't been able to do any of those things, really. It's been difficult anyhow to do that. They haven't received the same perks that one would normally get for being a football player at FSU. So this has had to be about the guy next to him, the sacrifice for the program, and also football. I think that's anybody out there loves the game of football.
One of the perks for the last 40 years is typically wins.
Oh, lots of them, yeah. Yeah, they haven't gotten that either,
no,
Tom.
That's a perk that's not guaranteed anymore.
So no perks whatsoever. this year so far for the Florida State football player?
You know, you come to my office, most years you get the company car. This year, we'll give you $10 for gas.
Or
Good
a
luck.
bike.
Yeah.
We'll give you a bike. You can ride there.
Bit of a fixer-upper, though.
Yeah. It's been a long year. But a chance today to spread a little joy in the holiday season by getting a win against Duke. Wouldn't that be something?
It'd be a jolly Saturday.
Wouldn't that be something? And then, it would be on the heels of having watched Florida State vanquish Florida in basketball, and it would just be a banner day for Florida State athletics in the middle of December that we didn't expect. I hope that's how this thing shapes up today. There is work to do. More Tallahassee Game Day in a moment.
The perfect
Jeff Cameron.
Time to get charged up for game day. All right, brought to you by GT Electric. GT Electric, with decades of experience in serving your residential and commercial needs, from household fixes to generators, GT Electric has you covered. For more information, visit gtelectricfl.com.
Boy, that was hearty, the charged up.
Listen, I'm excited about the game. I really am. I think that for Florida State, it's a chance to I don't know, just get to feeling better about yourself. Get these kids to thinking in a more positive way about what's possible. I get it's not a big game. Yes, we've never lost to Duke, and I don't want to start today. But in the big scheme of things, you're sitting here at 2-6. The program's in shambles. You've got nothing short of an average to below average recruiting class coming in. Really, your hope lies in a normal, some semblance of a normal offseason, coupled with some grad transfers that help upgrade your roster a little bit in some key areas. That's not a lot. I mean, but that's what you have right now. Let's add to the list of things by finding a little positivity today and beating a Duke team that's downtrodden. I mean, they gave up 56 points to Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech ran the ball to the tune of over 7 yards per carry. Georgia Tech's not any good. Now, they beat us, but they're not any good. And what's possible is what you've seen on the ground from Miami last week, Georgia Tech before that. You go back before that, they gave up a ton of points to North Carolina. They gave up a ton of – they really have not been able to get stops. You can run on this team. I'd like to see us run for a couple hundred, maybe more yards on the ground today, because that's what's been possible.
Well, and that's the reason to get charged up, too, that even though LaDamian Webb has opted out for the season, and hopefully we can recoup his services. I know Mike Norvell says he expects LaDamian to be back and ready to go in January. Anytime somebody leaves, I feel like there's a chance that they might not come back, especially because, the program is in the state it's in. But Lawrence Toafili, that is the reason to get charged up today, because that guy in the first handful of games this season flashed a few times, and you saw the ability, the playmaking ability. He's got to put a couple of pounds on his body, but he has vision, he has explosiveness, and if Duke is going to allow for, again, like you said, 6-7 yards a carry, that means somebody like Toafili is going to put some highlights up and give you a reason to feel good about yourself this evening.
Well, and, I think what happens is it comes to a head when we get to this late in the season and we think about what's happened. It's not just about this year, though. Florida State is 20-26 in the last 4 seasons. It's inexplicable what's happened here. All of the coaching changes, all of the losses, all the ineptitude. When you see a glimmer of light, when you see an opportunity, you've got to seize it. You've got to seize on any positivity that you can. And I'm afraid that if you add to the ledger of disappointment with a loss to Duke, that you are staggeringly further behind. I know that sounds weird, but I think that would make us the worst team in the ACC. I think we'd be 12th out of 12 teams in the ACC, right?
Yeah.
You could argue Syracuse, but I wouldn't want to play Syracuse right now.
But I don't want to have that argument with phone callers on Warchant TV for the postgame show. So let's not do that. Let's not do that today. You don't want to reset the bar to a lower position. I agree with you. It would take it to a new low. But I'm not focusing on that, man. Jordan Travis is going to run for $150 today.
Okay, so here's the deal. Florida State is 104th nationally in points per game and 76th in yards per game. You thought at the very least that you could hang your hat on an offense, and that hasn't been the case. Our only glimmer of hope has been spurts of offense for a half here and there on the ground. That's really been the success. Again, show me proof of concept here. Let's go out there and move the ball against a defense that's been willing to let you move it. There's no doubt about that.
It's a weird year, man, because they've had a month to prepare for this game. They've had a long time to prepare for this game. Many practices.
Yeah, but they haven't really been preparing for Duke all that much because they didn't know they were going to be playing that game.
They've been preparing. They've been preparing day in and day out. Unbelievable effort coming today. I will tell you that in truth, my hope starts about an hour and 40 minutes from now when they tip off at the TLC Double C for basketball. That is where my hope lies. I'm just hoping for an entertaining game that the Noles win when it kicks off at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, the Noles, I do worry about a couple of things here. I think we can joke all we want, and we can talk about what is or is not going to be gained by winning or losing this football game, but they haven't played. The reality is they haven't played since November the 14th. It's December the 12th. I mean, you really have gone a month here without playing football, and I don't know what to expect from them. I know they're healthier, and I know that the guys that are out there, as we were just talking about a moment ago, are going to be excited to be out there. But I don't know what I can expect from a team that hasn't played football in a month. I mean, there is something to that. They could be rusty.
You might see some people who put on a lot of weight or lost a lot of weight. A month is a long time.
It is. One thing I will say, again, I want to get back to reiterating something here since this first hour is mainly focused on football, and then we'll get into some basketball talk as well in the next hour. But I want to reiterate that Florida State's going to move the ball, but I think Duke will too. And that's a shame because they really haven't been able to do so lately. Obviously, they were shut out last week against Miami. Now, Miami's a far cry better than Florida State. But Duke showed a lot of disinterest on the defensive end. Offensively, one of their problems, again, is they've not been on the same page. It looks to me like not having that spring. They're another one of these teams. When you bring in a grad transfer quarterback, and Chase Bryce has talent. He was at Clemson for a reason. And you can't get on the same page, you can't do install, and you can't really practice the way that you wanted to, then you see these kinds of absurd results where you see a team turn it over 35 times and you have 15 interceptions. And, you play that way, it's I think, directly attributable because, look, Cutcliffe is not inept. He's a smart coach. He's done a lot more with less for a long time at Duke. So to see them play this way is surprising. But one thing to note, if you go back to earlier in the season, I watched them a lot early in the year. Now, that was because I was gambling on them. And they let me down, Tom, and I moved on quickly from Duke.
That's right. I do remember this.
Yes. Remember the Boston College game?
Yeah.
Inside the 5 twice, turned it over.
Actually, BC was quite good to me in the first month of the season. Yeah.
Well, so anyhow, I watched Duke several times because they had played Notre Dame close. Now, think about that for a second. They played Notre Dame close. They were in that game in the second half on the road at Notre Dame. They were right there, obviously, with a chance. They should have beaten Boston College, but they turned it over, which is what they like to do, twice inside the 10, which was ridiculous. But that's where they were. When I watched their offense, a couple things stood out. That when he gets time to throw, he'll put it on you. He doesn't have very good receivers to throw to. There's nobody here running away from your corners. Now, we barely have any corners. We haven't been good at covering anybody, but these are guys that surely you're able to cover. I guess my point is when he gets pressure, he rushes, he forces, turnovers are bound to happen. But when he has time, he's more than competent. And that's why I think today's going to be a shootout. Because if you go back and look, Florida State has rarely found a way to get pressure on the quarterback. And I'm going to go ahead and assume they won't get pressure on the quarterback today. And if they don't, hapless Duke is going to score, and we're going to end up sitting here watching 38-31. And, okay, however you got to do it, but I want to see some semblance of coordination on the defensive side of the ball.
Even if you're not capable of executing the plan, just show me a plan.
Show me some coordination.
But that's the funny thing is I feel like it's 1905. We're on the docks of the Hudson, and there's a bare-knuckle brawl going on. It's the 14th round, and you're just like, look at these two mauled pieces of meat that we call humans. Because you're like, if the Chase Bryce gets pressured, then he does force it. Well, we don't generate pressure. They don't have receivers that run away from your corners, but we don't have any corners. Yeah, this is the linebacker level doesn't exactly cover either. So, yes.
No, they
this
don't.
is it is going to be very much an exhibition. That's what I treat this game today. I'm not kidding. It feels like the Arizona State bowl game last year. I don't know what I'm going to get. I just hope it's entertaining, and I hope the Noles win because I want momentum for the program. But this is so far removed from the flow of the regular season, which started and was a week-by-week thing. Florida State existed in the pandemic as kind of a routine team, week to week. It's been so long since I've seen us play it. I don't know what the hell to expect, but you're right. If I was betting on a high-scoring game or a low-scoring game, high-scoring game is what I'd bet on.
Yeah, and Duke's coming off now. I think right at the start of the show, if you're looking for an angle, if you are in play, if you know what I mean there, you're going to want to see who's decided to strap it on and fight because Duke didn't fight last week. They lost 48-0, and they didn't play very hard.
Oh, their coach said they were done.
Yeah, and they were. It was evident. The first quarter, first drive, I watched and I went, okay, he's not kidding. They don't care to be there. It was a whole bunch of guys standing around waiting for the clock to run out. I mean, it was amazing. I haven't seen too many. I don't like to accuse kids of quitting because I think a lot of times if they're just not good enough and they're getting run over and, their will can be sapped, but they're not quitting per se. I don't know. I mean, what I saw last week was there was a whole lot of quitting, Duke.
Yeah, but it's not the same this year. Given that you're fried mentally in the protocols,
Correct.
It's not like they quit on their coach or they're lesser than a true competitor. This is just a year that'll beat you down.
Yeah, and they're 2-8. They're 1-8 in the ACC. This is, by the way, again, a battle to stay out of last place in the ACC. That's what we're doing today, guys. We're trying to stay out of last place. If Duke beats us, they'll go to 3-8, and they'll be 2-8 in the conference, and we'll be in last place.
We are all face down in the muck. When Tallahassee game day first started here on the FM dial, ahead of your times, could you have imagined that we'd be breaking down a game in 2020? It's in December. It's between Florida State and Duke. I mean, the second year we did Tallahassee game day, Florida State and Duke played in December. You know why? The Noles were on their way to a national championship.
Yeah.
Now they're playing to stay at a last place in football, Florida State.
Last place.
My God.
And fighting on the hardwood to stay in first place in the ACC. Yes, it's very, very strange what's happened here. We joke about being a basketball school now. We're a basketball school. That's what we've become. Now, that's fun to say, I guess, but at the expense of football, it's not fun to say. And also, it's not necessary. You don't have to be the last place team in the ACC. It's not who we – the last 3 of the last 4 years, Florida State has brought in a top 25 class in recruiting. There's no reason that any program that brings in a top 25 class in recruiting 3 of the last 4 years should be this bad. Now, we know the other circumstances that help conspire to this campaign, to where we are now. And when you've had 4 different coaches,
Oh yeah,
you are truly a mess.
and one of those classes basically didn't exist when you look at attrition.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things that have to get cleaned up. There are a lot of things that have to happen for us to climb out of this hole. I do believe Florida State will. I think Mike Norvell can. We get into recruiting discussions, and we can do that in a second, talking about the overall health of the program. This is the battle. This is where it's going to be tough, because obviously they extended the dead period. That did Florida State no favors. These early signing periods have done no favors for Florida State right now. It does no new coaching staff any favors, because they haven't established relationships. But on top of all of that, they couldn't establish relationships this year in the state of Florida. And they don't have anybody on the staff outside of Odell, really, Dugans, I guess, who have history of recruiting the state. So they haven't been able to sell who they are and get to know these coaches. All of this is a nightmare. And I think when we talk about projecting and wondering what Florida State's going to be, again, get yourself a win here today. Begin to feel better about yourself. Show me what's possible when you've had some time to prepare and you're healthy and you're committed. And then from there, let's move forward and really hit this grad transfer portal hardcore. It's unlike any other year that I can remember. There are opportunities out there. You've got a couple quarterbacks that you can go after, and I would. I would find anybody, really, frankly, that would upgrade my team at any level of the defense, because they haven't played well at all. I think you got to find a JUCO rush in and get him in here.
Absolutely.
So that you can,
Absolutely.
I know that
they're
Florida
in
State,
on one. Yeah.
And Florida State just got a really good one, but he's 205 pounds. So, I don't suspect the kid coming out of Miami to be a first-year starter. He's got to get to the Bama table.
Right. We got to get him to the underclassman Raekwon Gray table.
That's correct.
That's what we need.
Yeah. So we've got to get him going, but that's going to be a couple of years, right, before he's really firing in off the edge. So you got to get a grad transfer, and you got to get a JUCO. You got to do whatever you can. I think Florida State cannot be bashful about doing whatever they have to do to upgrade this team. I know people will constantly say, well, if you go after a quarterback, you're going to upset the quarterback room. I don't care. None of these guys have shown me that they're good enough for me to worry that they want to transfer. So I'm bringing somebody in. I'm doing it on the offensive line because that worked. You saw, and it's crazy to me, that a player, Love Taylor, he's okay.
Right, yeah.
But he's not an all-world, but he looks all-world on our offensive
And he
line.
changed everything about the way they play, the confidence, the checks at the line. I
Yeah.
mean, he was an MVP this year.
Yeah, so
Legitimately.
you see how just a slight bump in quality at each of these places can bridge the gap while you create relationships in the state and normalize things in a non-COVID situation. That's the plan moving forward.
And maybe you find yourself a position coach that, maybe they've got a spotty track record. I don't know. You got to speed up the process here, though, because if there's much more of this, I think I heard a lot of vodka bottles cracking open during this segment. Because, my God, when you dwell on how bad it is.
Well, when I document how bad it is.
And the near future, what it looks like. I mean.
Yeah, we're not going to be good next year, guys.
I'm glad people are signing up for booster contributions because that's the way out of this thing. But it's not going to, just because you called over and you said, hey, $150, here you go. It's not going to change, in a week. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, it's going to take some time. You got to show signs that you're moving in the right direction. That's all we're talking about here. I'm a reasonable human being in this sense. I understand that programs go through ups and downs, and it's our time to be down, and it's hurtful. I hate it, don't like it. It's tough when you're going through it, but that's where we're at. What I also know is that I've watched those programs who, when they hit rock bottom, found their way back with the right guy at the helm and the right message, and usually it was all kickstarted by a glimpse of what was possible, a season where maybe they won 5 games after winning 2 or 3. And you think, as you watch them play, boy, they fight for him. They're still fighting. They look like they're sound. They look like they kind of know where they're headed. And then the following year, you see an 8-win season, and you go, you know what? They fought their way out of this. But it starts with little things. You never know what that step is going to be. It could be today.
Right, and that's what I would say about the next 2 weeks. Nothing's promised. I mean, you saw yesterday that Georgia Tech and Miami for the 19th is already canceled because of problems within the Georgia Tech program. So you really embrace every game that you get. And today we're not going to have an announcement mid-show because the ACC finally moved their protocols up to Thursday, thankfully. So a team gets on the plane, they know they're going to play a game. So Duke is down here, we're going to play. But this is an opportunity. That's what I'd say. These 2 weeks to show those signs that you're talking about.
Yeah, just show me some signs. I mean, it'd be nice if you can get a win today. Certainly, I'd like you to win the game today. This is a terrible Duke team. I mean, they really are bad. But, again, I say that all the while knowing we're terrible. So, you can't assume anything even against this terrible Duke team. But you get this win and you play hard and you show some stability. You show some signs of knowing what you're doing. In particular on defense, be where you're supposed to be. Be coordinated. You may not be good enough, but be coordinated. I'd like to see that because I haven't seen it this year really at all. Maybe the first half against Carolina, maybe.
Yeah, they were together.
They were together there, yeah. But many of those guys who had an impact on that game are certainly not playing today. You don't have Marvin Wilson, obviously. You don't have Asante Samuel today. You don't have Durden today. Those guys all played well against Carolina. You really don't. So we'll see. What you do have, is it good enough? Can they make plays? Can they be where they're supposed to be? That'd be important.
Ooh, buddy.
Tallahassee Game Day continues in a moment. Come see. If we get a woo right off the bat, I got to say thank you.
Yes, you got to say thank you to A. Wright. A. Wright says, silly question. You think there's any chance FSU will play any bowl game? Looking at the current bowl slate, still going to be a need for about 70 teams to fill.
I don't know at this point. I would like them to, if they got invited. I don't know that they will. If they end up winning this game and then losing to Wake, you're 3-9, right? Would that be what we would be at that point?
Indeed.
I don't know. It's interesting. All of those practices would aid your ability to, expedite the process, I think. But
you'd have to have a team meeting, wouldn't you? Guys, do you still want to?
Well, you really would, because, again, the amount of sacrifice you're asking them to continue to engage with, and this is a year unlike any other year that we have ever seen in college football. I mean, think about it. Last night I'm sitting there watching Arizona State beat Arizona like a drum, and it occurs to me that Arizona State's played 2 football games. 2. They're 0-2 going into that game last night, and I liked them to stomp Arizona, and they did. But that tells you what I think of Arizona, and someone's going to be out of a job, and that's a bad situation. But they've played 2 games. 2! That's insane.
It's December.
They've played 2 games. So I was sitting there, I thought, what is going on? Utah State today shut down their program because the players told the coach, we don't want to play anymore. They had a game. But no, we're good. We don't want to play. When would that ever happen?
Right. Yeah.
And
when would it be a legitimate discussion? Because the life of a student athlete right now is a bubble without the benefits of the bubble. They're telling you to be in a bubble, but they're not really doing anything beyond what they normally would in a typical year, besides the testing. There's no bonus to it. And typically you get a little bit of a work-life balance, so to speak, when you're a student athlete, especially a football player, but you don't even have that this year.
No. I'm still going back to his question. I'm 99.9% of the time, I'm for more football, not less football. I'm for more practices, certainly, when we're as bad as we are. I want the practices, and I want the opportunity. And listen, by the way, in a normal year, bowls are fun for kids. They're rewards. They're rewards, for that sacrifice, for getting to go somewhere new, and you get treated like a king for a week, and, you're up there doing what you're doing. But I don't know that would be the case right now, given COVID restrictions. And so even that reward, I don't know if it is or isn't, if it's just a longer term by which you suffer.
If they're in, though, you go and you play and you get those practices in. You need every practice you can get, every single one. That's one of the good things about today, too, because of the attrition, guys who have opted out, they're hurt, they're dismissed from the program, all the things that have happened in the last couple of months. You get a chance today to evaluate some younger players, some less experienced players, guys you never would see typically on the field for an actual game. You'd see them in practice, but you wouldn't see them in a game. And if you could do more of that with a bowl game, then sure.
I guess you do. It's
easy for us to say, though. Go for it. But the kids have to be bought in.
I'll be surprised if Florida State plays in a bowl game. I'll say that. But if you are invited to play in one and the kids vote to do so, yes, I would play in it. You want the opportunity. You also want whatever monies are associated with it. A lot of times, though, bowl games cost you money. But you're not really going to have to travel the band or anything like that. So I don't. It's bizarre. This is.
We don't need the ticket allotment. We're good.
Well, I brought it up yesterday on the show. The ACC Championship, or just north of 5,000 tickets available total, and I was cracking up laughing because on StubHub last week, you could get an ACC Championship ticket for $17,000, and I said, what clown would ever pay $17,000 for a conference championship game? Then it got, the price dropped down to $9,000. And then I saw one for $1,900. So we went from $17,000 to $1,900. I'm like, I'm going to give you $10. Who's paying for these games? It's crazy. I don't know who's going to that bowl game?
A Notre Dame fan maybe that lives in Charlotte? Maybe.
Yeah, but let's project out. Florida State gets invited to
the Florida State Bowl,
yeah,
not the ACC Championship.
Who's going to that game?
The bowl officials?
Nobody. You're just getting your TV money is what you're getting and moving on.
Locals. If you've got a local alum,
Yeah, that's about it.
you go scalp tickets for 15 bones. That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, you really do feel the fruitlessness of all of this. You kind of it's easy to go down that path of feeling dejected and frustrated, and that you don't see any real value. But I think it would be further damage today if you come out and look ill-prepared, if you come out again and have a problem playing in this football game. That really ought not be the case.
That is a mental exercise I do not want to do. If they come out and they look like a mess, oh, dude.
Well,
beyond rust, beyond like what's normal.
Yeah, it would very much be part of 2020. I mean, it would very much be, once again, like how when they were practicing, how physical were those practices? Probably not very. They have dangerously thin. They're on the margins as it is. They barely have enough players to play the game. You're not going to go out there and hit hardcore. So I would say that even though you got to practice, I can't imagine that they were great practices. That's a big part of what we've seen this year. Not to make excuses, but we've seen it all over the country with defense struggling in a lot of situations beyond what's reasonable. It's one thing, you have a bad game or it's a bad matchup or something like that. You see defenses that just are not playing good football. They don't tackle well. They're not in sync, and I think that's because you're not able to practice well. You can't, when you have a reduced roster, or let's just say a position group is thin. Even if you've got a robust roster for COVID, so you have 70 eligible players, but at some point you had an opt-out and then an injury, and then a kid decides to, enter the transfer portal, or he's upset, and they're all in the same segment group. Well, now how do you practice with that group? So you go out there with, in our case, we have 3 corners. I don't want any of them making tackles. Hell, I'm putting them in a bubble wrap. That's the tough part, is that they haven't really been able to, even though we've had a lot of time off, I don't think Florida State's had great practices.
No, in a normal year, when there's a disjointed nature to anything, defense is always ahead of the offense. And that's what the pandemic season has been all about. All these leagues, as they start staggered as they did, it's the offense was ahead of the defense. The NFL it was too. It was an over machine the first month of the season.
Yeah, it's evened out now. Also with weather.
Of course, but teams get into a routine and all that stuff. The film's out there, and you get feeling good about yourself. And the same thing in college, too. As each league plays more games, you see something that resembles more of what a typical college football season would look like. But all of these leagues, all these conferences, it's been the offense was ahead of the defense. What a backwards year.
Oh, everything about it. Well, if you think, just focus on the question we were just asked that we tried to answer. The fact that Florida State is sitting out here with a possibility of getting their 3rd win today, maybe. And you could ask the question, would you go to a bowl game if you were invited? What the hell kind of crazy world are we living in? Like, that's a joke, but it is a possibility, so you do have to talk about it, I guess. And it's a fair question to ask, but that's how strange this is. A 2-win team, you could ask 2 guys on the air about whether or not they would accept a bowl bid for a 2-win team. It's bizarre, but that's kind of where we're at.
Heady times.
Yeah. Tough times, indeed. Tallahassee Game Day continues in a moment.
Lane's Medical Shop is
Simple ingredients, one great taste. Enjoy responsibly. Here's ESPN Tallahassee's Jeff Cameron.
Rounding out the hour here, Tallahassee Game Day, we'll switch on over to the court report. Now, those are fun conversations to have when we start to document Florida State basketball. Interestingly enough, I couldn't help but note when we came in this morning to prepare to do this show, if you go to Seminoles.com, the front page is basketball. That is funny. I mean, I never thought I'd live to see the day. Maybe against a number one ranked Duke team or something like that, maybe. But when you're playing football on the same day that you're playing basketball, you would always assume when you go to the university website that football is on the front page, but it is not.
So when Coach Hamilton was available to the media yesterday and talking about the Florida game, he said, I want to thank TV for the early start time to this game. If I had known better, I would have pushed for Sunday. But I appreciate the networks. And he said, I've never had a game before where I feel like I need to sleep over in my office to make sure I'm here on time. But that's exactly what we're going to call for. The game tips in just over an hour. And the channel, for those of you who are interested, is ESPNU today.
ESPNU.
For basketball. It is the ACC Network that's not present in most of the footprint for football.
Glorious ACC Network today for football, indeed. By the way, Tom, why don't you tell us? Field conditions for today's game brought to you by AAA Tree and Landscaping. Did you know AAA now operates a garden center where you can find anything and everything to make your outdoor space beautiful? Trees, mulch, pavers, gravel, flowers, and so much more. Make the AAA Garden Center your choice for your next project and visit the Garden Center at 3610 North Monroe Street. They also do Christmas lights these days, so a lot of goodness there from our friends at AAA.
Yeah, we appreciate them because they sponsor both the football version of this show and the basketball version.
Well, we'll do that again next time.
Yeah, that's right. And then we'll tell you about the holiday lighting. The field conditions are good today, man. That's the one, well, not the one, but one of the few good things about today's football game is if you're going to go to it, the temperature at kickoff time is going to be in the low 70s. By the time the game's over, it's going to be in the lower 60s. Beautiful day in Tallahassee.
Beautiful day in Tallahassee, and a chance to, again, go over there. For I suspect they'll be able to maximize the amount of people that can go to this game. What do you think? It's 20,000? Is that right? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
I hope they clear all the tickets. I would think it's more of a local game. I don't know how many people on short notice got in their car and drove up here.
Yeah, my father did not. He missed out on what would have been the Virginia game. That was part of the package that he had, and he didn't come back. And so I got to say this. It's the dad gauge. Most people wouldn't know, but my dad has been going to games for well over 30 years, and straight. He doesn't miss them. It's closer to 40. And he's like, nah, I'm good. That's where we're at, Tom. Pops was like, I'm good.
Well, on a positive note, and this is a genuinely positive note for those of you who are alum or have children who might be alum starting this weekend. Congratulations to all the graduates. I know there was a ceremony last night, a virtual one. For those of you who are maybe grad school students or you're getting your PhD and you want to walk and your ceremonies might not be until this spring, hopefully, or next winter still. Congratulations on completing all of your degrees, both undergraduate and postgraduate. That's a cool weekend typically, and it's one of the sad things is usually a weekend like this is reserved for a bunch of people flocking to Tallahassee, and the cars are piling up on the streets and nobody knows where the hell they're going because family's in town. Instead, you get Florida State Duke for a battle to stay at a last place in the ACC.
Let's just segue on over. I think we don't need to talk too much more about Florida State football. At the end of the day, I will say this. I do think Florida State wins today. I'm not emboldened to the point that I predict a lopsided affair or anything like that. I just think they'll score enough. I don't trust our defense to get stops, even against this offense that has really struggled. But Duke's offense can move the ball when they're not turning it over. And I don't know that I can expect turnovers. And I certainly know the evidence is overwhelming that they're not going to get pressure on Chase Bryce. So if that's the case, then I suspect Duke will score their fair share as well. So you're going to have to win a shootout.
This is one of those games, too, where in the first quarter, I don't think we have the capability of overwhelming Duke, obviously. But if you did, they might shut it down. And they might be thinking about, a late dinner back home.
That would be great. Go ahead and quit, Duke.
Kind of like the Pitt game. Remember, in that first quarter, even with Pickett playing, there was a time where they were ready to go.
They were right there, and then
it happened.
And then they were excited. And we went, oh, great. This isn't good. They're going to beat us like a drum. And they did. Frustrating. All right. the second hour here. You can watch us continue as we talk all Florida State basketball in a moment. It'll be fun for the court report. I think we're staying right there on Warchant TV as well on YouTube. If you want to ask questions about basketball, feel free to do that as well. We'll be back shortly. Hang in. Brian.
Tom Lang.
Switching it on over to the court report. We appreciate you sticking around with us. We did an hour of Florida State football, and for that we apologize. Now to Florida State basketball, which is an entirely different animal. One that won the ACC a year ago all by themselves. No ties, nothing like that. It was all ours. ACC champions today taking on the University of Florida. Out of Gainesville, the Gators are making the trek to Tallahassee, where it has not been a lot of fun to play Florida State. Mike White, the head coach there in Gainesville, has recruited well, hasn't always performed at the highest level with those recruits. Now, he hasn't been terrible, but the standards are pretty high there, given who he had to replace, and they have been underwhelming in their results on the whole. Florida State, meanwhile, has not only won this rivalry game a bunch lately, they've also done things that they've never done in the program's history in these last few years, and that is simply not lose at home for years on end. It's really rather remarkable. The other night, they added to an already impressive stretch of wins in overtime. That's 10 straight now for Florida State in overtime. You go to overtime, and you're playing Florida State, for whatever reason, you're going to lose. That's good coaching. That's a bit of good fortune as well. But right now, I think what we get excited about is this season, this year, this game today, this rivalry, for Florida State a chance to win 7 in a row against the University of Florida. We'll see. This will be one of the tougher tests that they've had in this rivalry over the last few years, because I do think this is a veteran bunch. I don't think it. I know it. It is a veteran bunch for the University of Florida. These are guys that have played in this game. They've played in a lot of big games. They've played a lot of time. They spent a lot of time together. And they've also played more games than Florida State has up to this point. So I don't think there will be any rust for them. I don't think there will be any confusion about what they're trying to do. It's still not a great matchup for Florida. Because, again, this is not a big team. This is not a huge team compared to Florida State. Most teams are smaller than Florida State, period. But Florida likes to play a three-guard lineup. They like to play small. And I do think that's what's hindered them in this rivalry over the last couple of years. They have really had a hard time adjusting to Florida State's height.
Well, it's a really interesting
length.
Both teams are in flux. For different reasons. There's a little bit more continuity, as you said, with the University of Florida, but they're changing the way they play offense. They've got a two-guard now running the point for them. They want more possessions. They want as many possessions as they can get. So Mike White, in his time at Florida, the 2 slowest paces he's run are the last 2 seasons. And now with Nembhard gone to Gonzaga and then Kerry Blackshear gone, he was a 1-year transfer down there. Remember, that was a coup when they got him from Virginia Tech. Didn't matter last year in this rivalry. But they both wanted to run a little bit slower. And his pace was below 70 possessions a game. Now they want to maximize the amount of possessions that they get in a game, which is interesting because this Florida State team that is not experienced, especially with Scotty Barnes being your point man now, your point guard, they want to open up and run themselves. So you might get to see a bit of an up-and-down affair today, which is much different than what Florida State looked like on Wednesday night against Indiana, who plays pack line, and they don't like to run tempo. They were 220th in tempo before they tipped off on Wednesday night.
I made a point in talking to a former player just last night about this team, and we were kind of discussing what has to happen in the coming weeks for Florida State to reach their potential. And we all know that early on, Florida State is a collection of talented players. In the case of Scotty Barnes, one of the most talented freshmen in the country, but not a group of guys that have played a lot together. And so you're wondering, okay, how does Barnes and Calhoun and those guys, some of the younger guys, some of the younger bigs, how do they fit in, and how quickly can we figure out everybody's role and what we can and can't do? What are our strengths and how to play to them? And the first thing he said, the former player said to me, was they got to play a lot faster. They got to get out and start using this athleticism and length and play above the rim, and let's go. Get out and go. And they specifically cited the fact that Raquan Gray is in the kind of shape now to be able to do that. And he was fantastic the other night. He was the best player on the floor for Florida State, had the best game for Florida State the other night against Indiana. And that's a real positive sign. That's something that I take away from that game. There are a few other things. Obviously, the confidence that Scotty Barnes plays with. At some point, Scotty is going to realize that he's open for a reason. Now, I think, it's a big sign that he hit that 3 late. Ordinarily, you would have said not a good shot selection, but he knocked it down, and he has the kind of confidence that you don't see from 18-year-olds because, frankly, he's been nothing but successful his whole career, and he has stepped in here and immediately thought that he could play at the highest level, and that's a good thing.
Oh, we're not always going to like that shot. Most times we're not going to like that shot, but that it's in him is so important because a lot of times when you see a point guard who sees the floor the way that Scotty does, their first thought is always distribution and never about me going to the basket and scoring. I like that he has it in him. Most of the time, he's going to do his damage by breaking a defense down, driving to the basket at 6'9". They collapse. He kicks it out to the open man, or he passes in the paint as he's driving. That's one thing that he's done so far in the games that we've seen. Scotty has vision around the basket to pass the ball as well. It's atypical. This is as talented a point guard as we've ever seen.
Couple of things I also want to see. Now, you're right, and he's going to grow.
For this program.
Yeah, and he's going to grow in leaps. You're going to see that kid get better and better as the year goes on. Again, I don't think at any point in his 1 year here is he going to be a prolific scorer. He may have nights where it's an advantageous matchup and he gets to the rim a lot and he scores more than he does in other nights, but he's not a prolific scorer. He's a distributor. He's a defensive nightmare for teams facing Florida State. That's really the area where you see the greatest impact immediately. Is watching opposing guards all year is going to be fun because they have to go up against a guy with a wingspan of a 7-footer. And when you watch that, he's got the quickness with his feet to guard 6'2", 6'3", 6'4 guys. It's really uncanny. That's where he's uniquely gifted to be 6'9" with that body at 18 years old, with that length and that quickness. Seldom seen in a package like that. You just don't get it. So he's going to be impactful on that end of the floor every night, every time he plays. He'll be up and down on the offensive end of the floor. I think a couple of things revealed themselves through the first two games, and you do a great job, along with Chris Malagon, of putting together these pieces on Warchant.com. Hamalytics is what it's called, folks. You should go and read it if you haven't yet already. Tom and Chris dive into the numbers and really kind of help further reveal what this team is. But one thing, just from common observation here, I would say that last year's team, one of the great strengths was that they really did a good job of cleaning up the glass on the offensive end, and they always do under Hamilton. And really this newfound success, Florida State does a great job of rebounding their misses. And then the other thing that they do when we talk about them on the defensive end is they create turnovers. They turn teams over, and that's all of those long guys in the passing lanes, altering shots and altering passes. They don't let you, Billis brought it up the other night, same thing that happened last year. They do not let you get into your offense. I thought one of the most telling things last year was after North Carolina lost to Florida State, and Roy Williams was asked about it, and he basically said, well, Florida State never lets you run your offense. You can't run your offense. You can't get into your offense because they're too long. And, you know, he was talking about they were trying to reverse the ball, and they had a post player who's young, and he's sitting down low with his hand up. He's like, what are you doing, man? We can't get the ball to you.
Yeah, that's a press conference that's usually reserved in normal times for a Florida State football game. When you're talking to a coach and what went wrong today? He said, well, they've got really good players. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, what do you want me to do?
When they're going to dominate you in the trenches, I can't run what I want to run. And that was a breaking point for Roy in his press conference when he said, well, reverse the ball. I mean, there's like 14 left on the shot clock by the time I can run what I want to run. And at that point, I can't run what I want to run. So, that's the problem of facing Florida State. And the thing about Wednesday's game and the 69-67 overtime win is Florida State didn't always switch properly, and their eyes got caught up the court a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Top of the key. And that's where they let Trace Jackson-Davis go to work. A lot of open looks for him. Now, he was dominant. 25-17 is 25-17. But you saw it as they switched and the rotations and the principles. They weren't always sharp mentally.
No.
And that's the good thing about that win is you get it, and then you could go to the film and say, guys, we need to be better in this portion of the game. And even still with some of those breakdowns, Indiana only shot 36-37% from the field.
Yeah, we're going to be tough to play on the defensive end. We do a good job with all of that length, and we can throw a lot of people at you, and I think it creates tough nights at the office for most offenses facing Florida State. Now, and again, my point was the carryover from one year to the next, the consistency lies on the defensive end and turning people over. If you look at turnovers per possession, Florida State was one of the top 10 teams in the country last year enforcing that. And then the other thing that I would point to is, again, they set a school record last year in creating turnovers. Now, through 2 games, they're on pace to break that record. I don't know that they will. It's only 2 games. But we really thought, just by looking at who they brought in, And then also, Raekwon Gray was always good at creating turnovers and, influencing steals and all that stuff. He's always been good at that. He did that as an overweight player. Now he's in shape. He's quicker. You saw the other night, he was everywhere, anticipatory, but able to do something about it because he was quicker.
Yeah, that was one of the things when we were breaking down Florida State before the season started with Synergy Sports and the analytics that they show in the scouting report. So it's more about scouting reports than it is necessarily analytics. They loved him. The scouts at Synergy loved Raekwon Gray and his defense. And you could see it. He only was credited with 1 steal on Wednesday. He forced and was influencing on, 6 of them?
Oh, easily, yeah. And there were a lot of near misses.
Yep.
In fact, about 6 to 8 points from Jace, from Davis, were the ones where you kind of have a broken play, for lack of a better term. Like they're trying to run
a couple
their
times
offense.
Balsa couldn't get low enough to the court to pick up the ball.
And you deflect the ball, and then people are kind of scrambling, and we don't get to it. He picks it back up and lays it in.
That was one of the key things in overtime was you saw the half-court defense. Balsa made a difference when he was on the court in terms of not allowing second-chance points for Indiana, and when he was gone, we missed him sorely. But Balsa wasn't out there for a bunch of overtime. And Florida State out-rebounded Indiana. I think it was 6-1 or 7-1. In that final 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
That was huge in that game because the stifling possessions were there again. And I think today is a day where you can generate a lot of turnovers because there are more possessions to be had for both teams.
I do think Florida, though, has better ball handlers. Their backcourt is their strength, and so this will be a little bit tougher test in the sense that they're quick. You got to stay in front of them. The longer you are, the bigger you are, you can influence things, but it is sometimes tough to stay in front of small guards. And Florida State, we'll see. I think Florida's going to play with some confidence. Now, what you do when you get into the land of the trees to try to finish is another story.
Well, and that's the question. How does Balsa fit into this? If you're going to play up-tempo and Florida doesn't really have they're more athletic and they're smaller, how does he fit? Is he a mismatch that we can exploit, or is he a liability because he's not quick enough to get up and down the court and he's a little too stagnant? It'll be interesting to see how Leonard manages it.
Yeah, I think he's quick enough. My problem for him is foul trouble, always has been, and he'll be in it again today if he's out there a lot.
Well, hopefully this crew calls fouls when he gets hacked, too, because there was like a rule, like a Shaq rule on Wednesday where he was harmed a ton and he hardly got a call.
He looked fluid, though, didn't he? He looked a little bit more at ease with who he is as a player and his body. I mean, he looked strong. Yeah. He certainly looked like a guy that is going to be here for the long haul.
That's why Will Wade wanted to pay for him.
Yeah. Tallahassee Game Day Court Report brought to you by our friends at Lisa's Paint and Body Shop. Proud, longtime supporters of the tournament train. Lisa's Paint and Body Shop reminds you that it's your choice to find a body shop that is working for and looking out for you. Lisa's Paint and Body Shop, 2820 Mahan Drive, and online at lisaspaintandbody.com. More Tallahassee Game Day Court Report in a moment.
and Tom Lang.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Lane's Medical Shop with locations in Colquitt and Donaldsonville. Lane's Medical Shop offers all your medical supply needs. They even have delivery and emergency service available as well. Lane's Medical Shop, 229-228-5811. That's 229-228-5811. The interview of the week is none other than star freshman Scotty Barnes.
My teammates just kept telling me to be confident, keep going to the basket. So that's why at the end I just kept being aggressive, attacking, because they just MJ, Turk, Malik, Justin on the bench telling me just keep being confident, keep attacking the defense. I'm 6'9", I can get in there basically whenever I want.
Coach talked about you getting a feel for playing with the other guys, being a point guard at this level. Can you just kind of give some insight on that through 2 games, how it has gone for you and what it is like kind of learning on the job in real time against quality opponents like Indiana?
As a point guard, I gotta have my own pace. I gotta be patient. I have to run certain plays, certain sets. I have to get the offense a good flow throughout the game. I can't just go out there and rush things and try to do my own thing. So the most thing that I learned is that I just have to be patient, get others involved, run the offense, and just try to get everyone on a level where we're all connected.
Scotty, last year you were on the number 1 team in the country and you beat really good teams by 30, 40, 50 points. When was the last time you were in an overtime game? Have you ever been in an overtime game? And were you nervous at all?
I would say the last time I was probably in an overtime of the game was probably like 11th grade year. Geico, we played Geico Nationals. We played a lot of good games. We lost some. About the overtime games, I don't think I was nervous at all. I was very confident that we were going to go in there, get that win. We just wanted to keep playing. We really wanted that game because that was just a big game for us, this program in general.
Scotty, when there's 8.4 seconds left in a basketball game as the point guard, can you just take us through like the process you have of what you're looking for and what that process and those progressions look like?
Coach, he called a certain set that we wanted to run. We found a certain type of action that kept working multiple times. So we just wanted to keep going back into that action because we had good looks from it. So it allowed me to get downhill and drop to the basket, and luckily I got the basket.
Scotty, that was obviously the first overtime game you've been a part of here, but it was actually the 10th in a row. FSU's won now 10 straight overtime games. I know you're relatively new to the program. What do you think it is about this group of guys that, they've been able to run on?
This group of guys, they're just tough. They know what you need to do to win. Very encouraging, motivating, and they just really want it. That played effect in this game a lot because it without them in this game, I probably wouldn't be able to do what I could do in this game because they helped me so much throughout this whole entire process. This team, they just know how to fight. Last year, the year before that, they just know how to fight, get through those moments, keep pushing. Don't let the time go by because they know every possession is going to count.
I think it's important that he say that because it reveals, yet again, something we've known if you've watched the program closely, but that cohesion, that togetherness, that sense of encouragement, it just carries over year to year, even when you lose veteran players, even when you lose players that are superstars, guys that get drafted in the top 5 of the NBA draft. Florida State just lost a player of that caliber. Florida State lost a longtime leader who's also in the league now, and even though he went undrafted, I think Trent Forrest has a shot in the NBA, but he was the heart and soul of this basketball team a year ago. And, throw in Devin Vassell, another top 15 pick. What you see with Florida State is the continuity is there, and that you bring in a superstar player like Scotty Barnes who buys in, and the first thing he notes is it's not about him, but it's about those veteran players and how they encourage him, how they teach him, how they create confidence in a kid that, frankly, has a lot of it already. But, he's never played at this level. It was a big game. It was an overtime game. It was prime time. People are watching. He knows that this is a step up in competition, to say the least. And yet, because of that encouragement, because of those relationships and that fostering and that talent, he's in a position to make 2 huge plays down the stretch, and he cites that. He knows their leadership and their willingness to sacrifice and their commitment to one another is something that he can rely on game in and game out, and it was on display in just his second college basketball game.
I'm a broken record about this, but the most impressive thing and galvanizing thing I saw even in the UNF game is that Scotty and MJ get along. They really do get along, the two of them. And sometimes, because MJ could run the point, he could if he needed to.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you have a 3rd or 4th year player and they were a McDonald's All-American in their own right, highly touted, and then you have this next guy come in, a one-and-done, surefire one-and-done player, maybe they don't get along that well. But the synergy between the two of them, they fit. And that speaks to, again, in a small way, the culture and the continuity of this program. It's handed down from player to player. Leonard Hamilton isn't looking for the best available player plainly. He's looking for the best available player that fits within the culture of what they do. And he's been able to build that. It makes such a difference. That's one of the things about the football program that drives us mad. You've had a bunch of different people look at the same problem, and the culture is still toxic, and they're trying to work out of that. It's the exact opposite in the basketball program.
I hope, for our sake in football, they've been able to gut that locker room to the extent that they needed to. Time will tell. I don't know how they couldn't have. There are a lot of people no longer there. As for basketball, it is such a relief, and it is so, I think, refreshing to be able to know from year to year that you've got a great culture and that any superstar, quote-unquote, kid that comes in would have already had to buy in or had the mentality and the mindset and the makeup to buy in, or else we would have said no. It's very rare that programs get to a place, especially not tradition-laden programs like Florida State, where you can say no to uber-talented athletes. Like the fact that they've arrived at a place where they could pick out of the 5-star kids that they want is remarkable. It is, again, a testament to their willingness to stick by their principles and to force people to play within a certain set of parameters, and then have that not only be embraced, but have those players go on to succeed, go to the NBA, give back. They all give back. They all come back. They all love playing for Coach Hamilton and his staff. That, of course, then influences the next set of blue chippers, the next set of McDonald's All-Americans and AAU stars to say, oh, okay, my minutes may be reduced, my numbers may be reduced, but if I go into that program, I'm guaranteed to succeed. It's going to be a healthy environment, and so as long as I buy in, I'm going to get what I need out of it.
Yeah, and listen, this is a true story behind the scenes. Anthony Edwards wanted to come to Florida State, and he went, did he go number 1 overall? I forget what the draft order was, but okay. So number 1 overall pick, he goes to Georgia so he can, just pile up the stats and run the point and do whatever he wants to do. He would have come here, but he wanted guarantees on running the point, how much time he could.
He wanted assurances, yes.
He wanted assurances, and Leonard was like, no, man, we got Trent Forrest. I'm sorry, I can't promise you that, but what I can promise you is we're going to develop you, and you're going to get your chances.
Yeah.
And you're going to make us a better team. That wasn't good enough. And so he said, all right, peace. Leonard didn't bow to the wishes of the number 1 overall pick, and yet Florida State could have won the national championship last year without him. Without a problem, they could have. Well, that's where this program is.
Yeah, they're good enough to certainly get to the Final Four and give themselves a chance to win a national title. Yes, you're right. They certainly were, and it's a shame that we didn't get that opportunity. As it turned out, all they did was say yes to the kid who got drafted number 4 in the NBA draft. It's really pretty cool.
As a 6th man.
Yeah, I mean, think about how cool that is. You could say no to that kid, but, we'll take this other kid because he fits our culture, and then he goes 4th overall. They have really continued to bring in elite talent, and they're really good. I don't think they're going to be playing their best basketball for the, 5 or 6 games of the first 5 or 6 games of the season. They didn't play great the other night in beating Indiana. They played okay. It's cool to also be able to say about this program that they don't have to be their best to win. Yeah. That's how talented they are. But again, today's not going to be easy. If it is, I'll be surprised. If it is, Mike White, sir. At what point?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's true. At what point is correct.
Yeah.
Because we've got another loaded class coming in.
Well, that class coming in is number 1 or 2, depending on where you look. Yeah. I mean, at what point?
Listen, if I was doing Florida game day, which would suck, I'd say they're wrong for us. Again, this team is wrong for Florida. We can defend the perimeter with great size. We're quick to the ball. If they want to go up and down the court, I really like Florida State's chances because the key stat would be, if they play at pace, is points in transition. Fast break points. That's on every box score. what does that number look like? I think it would be robust for FSU.
I hope they do. I love to see them play fast. I think that we're athletic enough, certainly, to play fast with anybody that wants to. My only fear is, again, how cohesive Florida is with veteran players that have been together a long time and played a lot of games together. They're probably their best version of themselves that we've seen this early in the season. The last 3 years when we've seen them, they've looked disjointed. They've looked like they were trying to make something work. You had transfers that came in. You had all this different stuff where they were trying to figure themselves out. And along the way, they ran into a team that's deep and long and capable of defending, as you said. And baskets were hard to come by for Florida. They may be a little bit easier just because they know where each other are going to be and they've played so much basketball today. Again, Florida State's going to make it hard on anybody with that length. But it'll be interesting to see. How cohesive are we? Their cohesion, I don't think, is in question. Interesting test. I'll tell you this. I said it earlier. Winning that game against Indiana long term, I don't know that it will matter all that much. We'll see. Late in the year, I think Florida State's going to be in a position, based on the merits of what they do in the ACC, to not have to have needed that win to get in, is my point. But I do think that when you've got this many young and talented players that you're trying to work through and figure out, and you've got kids that you want to get playing time, that anytime you garner a win like that, a gut check win, a win where you don't play great against a traditional power like Indiana, and you get yourself in a position to learn as you win, as Hamilton says, and they did that last year early on. They won a lot of games, a lot of close games early on, right?
That USF game is a good example,
that's right. And they had to find themselves. They had to figure out their best version, but they were doing it while they won. Well, that's huge because then you put less pressure on yourself when you do enter into conference play because you've amassed a nice out-of-conference record. You're not trying to make up ground for what you didn't accomplish. That win the other night allows them to kind of go into this game, and I know it's a rivalry game and you always want to win it, but you know when the week started, we knew we had two big-time programs that we had to face off against, and we had played one game compared to everybody else's 4, 5, and 6 games, and you thought, well, how quickly can you knock off the rust? Let's see if we can go 2-0. Let's see at least go 1-1. Well, we're guaranteed to at least go 1-1 in that stretch. So I think you kind of come in today not feeling a lot of pressure. If you'd lost that Indiana game, and now you've got a rivalry game, and you have
Georgia Tech looming on Tuesday, and they beat the brakes off of Kentucky.
Right, you start to think like, okay, guys, this could get away from us. You don't want to give yourself an opportunity to doubt. I know they'd stay the course. I know they wouldn't panic. I know that that's a thing we as fans do. But it's nice to have one in your back pocket, knowing that you've got a game today that is, it's imminently winnable. Florida State, I think, could win this game, maybe even comfortably because of the matchup that you talked about. This is a problem for Florida. The size is a problem for Florida. But you could also lose it. We know that.
Sure.
It's just nice knowing that, you go into this game with one in your back pocket.
Oh, well, and Scotty could be defended by somebody more athletic than he's accustomed to because Florida is quick and rangy themselves. So, I mean, it's not a foregone. If you're drawing it up and both teams are operating at peak, which Florida State isn't right now, and Florida's even in flux a little bit in their philosophy, I like us a lot in this game. But the circumstances are what they are. And then again, you've got a big game on Tuesday. They get a bit of a break in the schedule, quote unquote. I don't know what UCF is. That's a week from today. We'll see. And then they play Gardner-Webb on the 21st. So it's like you get to play these 3 games, and then you get to step back and say, okay, where do we need to get better? And then who do we need to get minutes on the 19th and the 21st? That's the good thing for this coaching staff is there's almost like a second break before you get into the full slate in ACC play.
Also, again, want to remind you that interview that we played for you with Scotty Barnes brought to you by our friends at Lane's Medical Shop. Give Lane's Medical Shop a call today at 229-228-5811. More Tallahassee Game Day Court Report in a moment. Well, we can welcome in our friends from the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Keys to the game. Today's Keys to the Game are brought to you by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Tallahassee tradition of the best jumbo wings, most refreshing ice-cold beverages, and wall-to-wall TVs. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Get your game day on at the Corner Pocket, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, or get your tailgate order to go by visiting cptallybar.com. You want to do football and basketball? Do basketball right now and then throw in a little football?
That sounds good to me. That's what today is. It's a double dip for Nole fans.
Double dipping? I would tell you that for the football game, it's run the football effectively, run the ball a lot, like run it an exorbitant number of times. I would. Duke has been susceptible. I mentioned it last hour when we were talking about football that Duke's had some games this year where they gave up over 7 yards per carry, a couple games where they gave up over 6 yards per carry. They have had a hard time getting off blocks and fighting. This is a situation where you gotta test their chin a little bit here. I'm not sure they want to be here. They might, because certainly if they put on the film and saw Florida State's ineptitudes, they realized they had a shot to win the game. Yeah. So we'll see early on. But where you test somebody's want to and what for is in the running game. Always has been. You got to be physical. Defensively, you got to make tackles. You got to stick your head in there, take on lead blocks, all that sort of thing. And you only do that because it hurts. You only do that if you care. So let's see if they care, run the football. That'd be key to the game. It also allows you to keep your defense off the field. And our defense has been a sham. So I would hope that that's the key to the game today for football. Basketball, Tom?
Basketball, I'd say Keon and Keontae Johnson. A lot of keys there. But Keontae Johnson, a 6'5 wing for Florida, is averaging just under 20 points a game. This is not the same thing as Trace Jackson Davis and what he brought to the table. That is a guy in the post who, if you look at his shot chart and distribution, it's all in the paint. Like 99% of what Trace Jackson Davis brought to the table was around the basket. Keontae Johnson can get out on the perimeter. He's explosive. Who do you put on that player? How do you rotate? How do you defend him? He's only 6'5", so that's the thing. If you put a Raekwon Gray on him, if Scotty draws the assignment for a possession or two, Anthony Polite, you like your chances size for size, but he is somebody who can light it up, especially in transition. So that's the player to watch. Trey Mann also is the two guard that is now running the point for them, so Keon Trey as well.
Yeah, Trey Mann, Scotty Lewis, Keontae Johnson, all good players, all players that will be key for Florida if they're to have success today, and key for Florida State if they're going to have success today in slowing those guys down. So, yeah, I think you're right there, and I do think Florida State will have success doing that. It has been a matchup problem for Florida for years now. Florida State's length has really been the difference. I would also say that, in fairness to Florida State, they've also just had better players than Florida. I don't care what those recruiting rankings say and how many times Florida has come in here with all these quote-unquote blue chippers. Florida State's had better basketball players than Florida, and they've looked to be better coached than Florida, and this has been a consistent win for Florida State against Florida. And now today, an opportunity to make it 7 in a row. That is something to not only champion, but take a step back at and really appreciate.
I don't know if you've seen it this morning, but I heard, was Florida favored in this game? Did Vegas favor Florida coming into this building? I heard that rumor, and I can't believe it. I'll look it up now.
I know why you would ask that of me, given who I am.
Yes, that's exactly right.
But I did not, believe it or not, check it this morning. I did not look at the number. I don't traditionally, and I just got asked this on Twitter while we were doing the show, I don't traditionally bet on college basketball this early in the season. I want a large enough sample size to see who we are and who they are, anybody that is, for that matter. Who am I depending on? What are you? What do you do well? What don't you do well? Because it's about matchups in college basketball. We talk about this all the time with the NCAA tournament. It's hard to win national championships because you could be the best team in college basketball. Like a team that on a neutral floor would win the most amount of games against other elite teams. You might be that and still not win the tournament because there is a matchup problem for you somewhere out there. And if they're on your side of the draw, you get bounced out of this thing and you don't get your chance to show it. That's the problem with the tournament. It's also what makes it so dangerous and fun and tantalizing to watch.
Yeah.
But I like to know what those matchup problems are based on my personnel and a larger sample size before I put potato chips on them. So I got asked early. I don't know who the favorite is in this game.
So it's Florida State by 1.5. It might have opened for the Gators.
Might have opened.
Yeah.
They're basically saying it's a 50-50 game. It's a 50-50 matchup. And I'm kind of surprised by that, given Florida State's dominance over Florida the last several years, but also Florida State's dominance at home, although the home court won't matter as much this year, given that there are so few people in these games. I do know that, or in that arena, I do know that at the TLC Double C the other night, talked to two people that were there, both said it was loud for 2,800 people. They were very vocal. And I sense that. By the way, Florida State, it's not too hard, man. We got to get the double-sided thing going for the fake people. Can we do this right, please, so I'm not staring at a bunch of white cardboard cutouts instead of, and I don't mean by white as in race. I just mean as in the color of the back of the cardboard cutout. Let's do this thing.
Let's see some integration in the cardboard game.
Yeah. It's just all white dudes. What are we doing?
One other key, and I know your answer to this, and it's the right answer, but clean up the free throw shooting, because you overcame that the other night against Indiana, and that game would have been a walk and an easy finish had you not shot 53, 57%, whatever it was.
57% is not good. Hamilton expressed his frustrations with that, but we've certainly known over the years that comes and goes, and it really is unique to any particular singular game, right? So if you
contagious,
too.
It
really is. If you start off well, it seems to influence others on your team to play well from the free throw line as well. It's odd. I don't know that there's a science to that. Certainly there is a psychology to that, though. Seeing the ball go through the net consistently from the free throw line, I can only imagine encourages folks and emboldens people when they step to the line. I do know this. Hamilton is right, usually is, when he says that these games, these early season games, are about getting comfortable in heated moments against elite competition.
Slow down,
slow your brain down, slow your heart rate down. It's hard. It's funny. Anybody that's ever played competitive anything, you know what it's like when you go out there and it matters. It's not practice anymore, and it's not a scrimmage, right? I don't care what sport you played. If you grew up playing organized sports, the second you take the field or the court, in this case, for a real game, and the results matter, and they're keeping score for a reason, you get nervous. You feel your heart rate go up. You feel your adrenaline rise. And you play with that intensity, yes, but sometimes it affects your focus. And it really can, until things slow down, until you calm down and get into, as they say, cliche-wise, the flow of the game. And I think that it's hard to do early on. You're talking about kids that have not played together. You're talking about a freshman. You're talking about a JUCO transfer in Calhoun, who I thought looked like he rushed early on. I mean, there's a kid that I want to take 5 to 7 shots every game, no matter what, from 3. He's a heat check kid. We got to check it. By the way, on that note, side note, listen, I'm going to need our designated three-point shooter to stop putting the ball on the court. Shoot the ball. Wyatt, when you catch the ball, shoot the ball. I don't care if you're 30 feet outside the basket, shoot the ball. You're not here to dribble drive. You're not here to try to work your way around people putting the ball on the floor. Stop doing that. Catch it and shoot it.
That was one thing I noticed. Wyatt did it, but other players did it too. When Balsa was working and that mismatch was rearing its head, then they tried to force it. And that was like the only thing in the half court they wanted to run. And Wyatt was a victim to that. Other guys were too. But that's a storyline for me to watch as the rotation gets sorted out. What does it look like in the half court? And is there variety rather than it's always inside-out basketball, feed the post? Be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think that will all depend on the matchup. I like the versatility of being able to pick certain matchups where we do that, and others just to play, a little bit more up-tempo and get to the rack with your athleticism and or shoot threes in the flow of the game in the offense. I do think that is something that they can do game to game, opponent to opponent. I just know that certain guys have roles on this team or will need to have clearly defined roles, and we know what Wyatt Wilkes' role is, and it's not to dribble drive. Shoot the ball.
The one that's interesting in terms of, I have no idea what his role is going to be, but I know we need him, is Malik Osborne. Because last year he played close to the rim, and if they play small today, then it's going to be easy for Malik. It was the same thing as last year, but with Raekwon looking better and Balsa looking good, where do you fit Malik in that puzzle?
He's a really tough kid and a good player,
and he can face the basket and shoot. It's not always a 3. Now, he hit a big 3 in that game on Wednesday, but a 12, 15-footer, that is very much his game, to stretch you out a little bit.
He does a lot of the little things very well. When you check the stat sheet and you look at, just in terms of the percentages in the minutes that he plays, he affects the game in a lot of ways, and it's not always by scoring. And so I think maybe the point totals in terms of possessions and minutes may be down for him, but he's going to play always because he does so many things very well.
Well, he had 9 rebounds quietly.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You think to yourself sometimes before you ever look at the stat sheet, where was so-and-so tonight? How come we didn't see so-and-so tonight? One thing that is an attribute to Florida State basketball time and again is that when you ask that question and then you look at the stat sheet, invariably you find out, oh, well, they didn't score much tonight. That's why I didn't hear their name called. But they had 6 rebounds, 2 steals, a block shot. They did these things. Or on the offensive end, they garnered extra possessions because they had 4 offensive rebounds. Like specific to helping your team win a game and stuff that in ways that maybe – when you're just viewing the game, you don't pick up on. And that's who he is. We'll come back and wrap up Tallahassee Game Day Court Report in a moment.
Cameron and Tom Lang.
Wrapping it up, taking you right up into tip-off. Not kickoff, tip-off. That's right, at 11. That's what happens, Florida State and Florida. Thanks for watching and or listening to today's Tallahassee Game Day Court Report. Also, Tallahassee Game Day in that first hour, which was dedicated to football. Anything else you're looking at in football-wise? We usually take a look at the slate today. College football is so strange. So many games canceled. So many rivalries not happening. Really, the highlight of the day, and we'll have it for you right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, is Army-Navy. Always is. And even that's unique this year, as they're playing there at the home of Army at Mikey Stadium. That's going to be interesting.
The first time since World War II they've done that, and this is a strange year, so it's fitting that if you're going to do something for the first time in 80 years nearly, this would be the year to do it. I would like just a quick moment to say rest in peace to my uncle Christopher Norton, who passed away yesterday. The world lost a good one. He was 96, and he was a veteran of the United States Navy. He served in World War II in the Pacific. He was also a firefighter and a really, really good man. And I always root for Army because that's where my father served every year this time. But if Navy won today, I'd be okay with it. Rest in peace to my Uncle Chris.
Absolutely. Well said, Tom, and I'm sorry for your loss. That's the game that every year we get excited about, and one of these days we're going to go to that game, Tom.
Yes, sir.
We're going to cover that game, and we're going to be on the sidelines for that game. It's something I want to do before I ever retire in this business, and we're going to make that happen.
We should do a pregame, American Game Day, instead of Tallahassee Game Day.
It would be a lot of fun. I like that game. Got to tell you also, I would say this, that if you're flipping around and you're wanting to watch some football today, let's say you're not watching Florida State basketball for whatever reason, I think the Colorado-Utah game will be an interesting one at noon, huh?
Okay.
I'm kind of intrigued by that matchup. Colorado's playing well.
Very intrigued.
Yeah, I am. I am intrigued by that one. Later in the day, I'm kind of searching. I'll be obviously tuning in when Florida State takes on Duke. I peek behind the curtain here. I will not be in attendance today for Florida State Duke. I'm leaving with my youngest son, to go down to the Bucks game against Minnesota today. I'll be down in time to watch Florida State play, but I'm leaving right out of here to the studio to head down to Tampa, and I can't wait to see his face light up when he walks. He's never been to a professional football game. So
that's cool.
That's when you walk down through the corridor there and you see that field for the first time. And when he sees the ship, When he sees the speed of that game versus on Saturdays. I mean, it's unbelievable how sudden everything is at the NFL level. And for housekeeping notes, we'll have that game for you tomorrow. The Scuttle Bucks with you and me. That starts at 11. Pregame coverage of Tampa Bay and Minnesota starts at noon ahead of the 1 o'clock kickoff. And then also coming up next is a Saturday morning bottle share. The TLH Beer Society got bumped this morning because we started at 9 o'clock ahead of the 11 a.m. tip, but all the craft beer scene information is coming up in just 4 minutes. Another reminder as we do this to appreciate and really, really embrace any game you can get, because I did it again today just checking. Michigan, Ohio State canceled. Ole Miss, Texas A&M postponed. Cincinnati, Tulsa, 2 ranked teams, canceled. Oklahoma, West Virginia, canceled. Purdue, Indiana, rivalry game, canceled. Texas, Kansas, oddly a close game most years, canceled. Ohio, Kent State, canceled, rivalry game. Miami of Ohio, Bowling Green, semi-rivalry, canceled. Incarnate Word, Tom's favorite team.
That's correct. It's the only kind of word I like.
At Arkansas State, canceled. Washington at Oregon, damn it, man, love that game. Every year, canceled. Utah State at Colorado State, Utah State said, no, Moss, don't want to play. Players said, we're not suiting up. They had to cancel that game. I could keep going. Again, as we look at the list, it's one after the other. We are limping to the finish line. I don't say that to make a statement. I say it to say appreciate the games while you get an opportunity to do so. Great work out of you, Tom, as always. Thank you, Matthew. Great work out of you as well. To all of you who watch the program, we appreciate you joining us on Warchant TV, on YouTube there, and all those of you who listen on terrestrial radio, good old radio, 97.9 ESPN Radio. We appreciate you very, very much, and we appreciate all of our sponsors. You guys take care. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the games, and go Noles. We'll talk to you on Monday.